Hello everyone, in this video, we will be seeing part 8 of What If Naruto Was the Descendant of Sparda. So be sure to stick around until the end. Let's get started. Haruno Sakura panted loudly as she lied both of her unconscious teammates within the safety of a hollow tree that she found. She still couldn't believe how her teammates were both taken down by the man who identified himself as Orochimaru and destroyed their team's scroll. It all happened so fast, and yet all she did was stand there and watch while her teammates were decimated. However, it was what happened after the incident that truly made her fearful for both of her teammates' well-being. Sasuke was bitten his neck by Orochimaru, who was somehow able to extend his neck like a snake. After that, Orochimaru left a screaming Sasuke in the care of Sakura, who saw the bite form a mark that looked like black coma-like marks. The mark seemed to cause him so much pain, and sadly there was nothing she could do to help him. And as for Naruto, it was something she had never seen the boy do, nor what happened to him after he was knocked out by Orochimaru, and Sasuke was given the mark. Flashback. Naruto stood before the newly revealed snake Sannin, Orochimaru, as he ripped off the face of the genin he murdered to reveal his true face. His skin was extremely pale, with purple eyeliner, designed to look like fangs and silted gold eyes. The man licked his lips with his extremely long tongue and smirked a predator-like smirk at the white-haired boy, who simply stood with his arms crossed across his chest. My Naruto-kun. How is it that you knew it was me? Orochimaru asked with Naruto scoffing. Please, do you think that your high smell of snakes would go past a person of my senses? Said Naruto, as he held his right arm and summoned the Kyuubi to his hand, and released some of Kyuubi's chakra, making his eyes the red silts of the Kyuubi no Kitsune. His power output was felt by everyone in the surrounding area and made Orochimaru raise an eyebrow. That was unexpected. Things are most certainly intriguing this time around. Orochimaru thought before he made a hand sign. It appears that you will be trouble, too much for me to handle. I'm afraid that I must take you out, Naruto-kun, summoning, grass-cutter, longsword of the heavens. Orochimaru said, as his cheeks puffed out, before he reeled his head back and opened his mouth. At that moment, everyone was beginning to regret eating breakfast, as a snake crawled from Orochimaru's throat, and also opened its own mouth to spit out the famous Kusanagi sword. Orochimaru took a firm hold of the handle and charged at Naruto. Naruto stood still for a moment before he swung his blade in a wide arc and watched as red flames erupted from his sword and flew at the Sannin in pretty high speed. But due to his opponent being on a higher level, a much higher level, he was able to dodge the blast and raised his sword high above his head. He then sent his attack toward Naruto, who parried with Kyuubi and countered with a punch towards the snake ninja's stomach before he himself jumped into the air and snap-kicked him in the left side of his head. That attack sent him off balance for a quick second, but the white-haired boy took advantage of this and socked the snake pedophile in his face before kicking him in his chin, making the snake Sannin fly into the tree behind him. Naruto then made some quick seals and called out, "Demonic skill, fire release, black fire dragon," and launched a huge black fire dragon at the Sannin and connected with it. He then cut off the flow of chakra and called back Kyuubi before summoning Yamato to his hand. He gripped the Okatana's sheath tightly in his left hand when he realized that Orochimaru was not where he last hit him. Naruto then rolled on his back in order to dodge a diving stab attempt from above. Naruto then flicked Yamato's Tsuba and grasped the handle while charging at Orochimaru, and got into a standoff with the snake Sannin, who still had that smirk on his face. I must say, Naruto-kun, you have pretty impressive skills in battle. Join me, and you shall be given power the likes of which the world has never seen before. He said, only for Naruto to narrow his eyes before he jumped back and stood still for a moment. I'm afraid that I must tell you to shove that offer up your boy fucking ass, Naruto said with Orochimaru growling and letting of a wave of ki at Naruto, who smirked himself and grasped the handle of his sword. Both swordsmen then ran towards each other, and once clashed with each other. Sasuke and Sakura were currently watching this fight with much needed interest and desire to learn about their teammate. Sakura was getting worried about the possibilities of Naruto getting hurt, while Sasuke was angry that he was so fearful of Orochimaru that he didn't even fight the way he should have. Well, he'll wait a little longer before he got back in this. Naruto sent another slash from Yamato that was dodged by Orochimaru, who then jumped over the boy and landed behind him, his sword poised to strike. Unless he would have, had Naruto not mutter spiral sword and make 6 summon swords surround him. The boy then pointed towards the snake ninja and watched as the ghost-like swords flew at Orochimaru at high speeds and nailed him in his chest. However, that victory was short-lived as Orochimaru turned into mud. His eyes then widened before he heard Orochimaru's voice behind him. "You are interesting, Naruto-kun, but I'm afraid I don't have another more time to waste. Striking Shadow Snake," he called out, extending his right arm, and launched 6 snakes out of it. Naruto quickly twisted himself out of the way, and quickly killed the snakes with a quick slash from Yamato. He made some quick seals before calling out Fire Release Grand Fireball Jutsu, and launched it Orochimaru's way, who jumped to the side and planted his feet on the tree behind him before launching himself at the white-haired genin. He then stabbed his sword through Naruto's stomach. However, the Naruto he just killed soon revealed itself to be a shadow clone, and Naruto himself appeared behind Orochimaru and raised his sword above his head, but Orochimaru was faster as he exhaled a breath of fire that hit Naruto head-on and launched him in the tree behind him. Orochimaru then prepared for his next jutsu. It would take all out of him, but the results were worth it in getting what he wanted done. He grabbed hold of his right arm, as 5 small flames with the kanji for fire, water, earth, wood and metal appeared in his hand. Naruto saw this, but before he could act, Orochimaru sent his freakishly long tongue at the white-haired boy, and grabbed his neck and revealed his seal to the snake ninja. Orochimaru then appeared before the boy, and slammed his palm in Naruto's stomach while calling out 5-element seal. Naruto doubled in pain before he began to feel his strength leave him. He staggered back and planted his back on the tree behind him, as Orochimaru chuckled to himself before looking at the sword Naruto held, and picked it up to examine it. "Not a bad sword you hold. It holds exquisite power," he said before stabbing the sword into Naruto's stomach, making the boy cough up some blood. "I'll be back for it after I claim my prize," he said as he vanished from sight. Naruto slowly began to lose consciousness as he heard Sasuke and Sakura trying to fight off Orochimaru. He felt himself getting weaker and weaker by the second, as his demonic powers dwindled. Meanwhile, "Shit," Kyuubi said behind his cage as a quintet of teardrop-shaped seals appeared around the Shikifujin on his cage and formed a barrier around his cage. On each teardrop was the kanji of the 5-element: wood, fire, earth, metal, and water, and each one glowed once every 3 seconds. Nevin stepped up to the cage and placed his hand on it, only to recoil at the backlash behind it. "Damn, that's quite a lot of power that seal is packing. It would be hell just trying to break through one of the seals," Nevin said with Kyuubi sighing deeply. "That's not the only thing this seal does. It renders all demonic powers amongst the bearer useless, so in short the boy is a full-blooded human with that seal on," Kyuubi said with the lightning witch looking shocked by that statement. How could a seal possibly be that powerful? Better yet, what would that mean for the bearer? "You mean that there's a chance that he could die?" Nevin said with Kyuubi looking down. "Yes," Kyuubi said in a saddening voice, back to the white-haired boy. Naruto felt his life slowly leave him, as his eyes were growing dull. "I can't die here, I must survive." Naruto spoke in his mind. A black void began to form around him, as a lone figure stood before him with a gold-tint glow surrounding him. See him, however, as he was busy trying to hold on to the few threads he had in his life. "I can't die here," Naruto said. "Survive," the figure said, walking towards Naruto, who was beginning to feel stronger. "I must live," Naruto said, feeling himself growing more in power. "You must live in order to survive," the figure said before the white-haired boy, and remained still. "I must continue on to fight," Naruto said before he got to his feet and looked at the figure before him. "You must fight to survive, but in order to do so you will need power," the figure said as he held up his hand. "I can grant you this power, but only for a moment. The rest is up to you, so survive until you can truly use it," the figure said with Naruto taking hold of his hand, and they both vanished in a flash of red, with Sasuke and Sakura. Sasuke cried out in pain as Orochimaru sank his fangs into Sasuke's neck, and thus came the cursed seal of heaven on Sasuke's neck. Once Orochimaru planted enough chakra into the seal, he retracted his head back into his body and smirked, as Sasuke grabbed hold of his neck with Sakura coming to his aid and saw the mark on his neck. "You, what did you do to Sasuke-kun?" Sakura asked, sending Orochimaru a death glare, only to be laughed at by the snake Sannin. You are too weak to be intimidating little girl. Anyway, what I gave Sasuke is but a little gift that will give him not only great power, but will also come to seek me for more. Orochimaru said as he pulled out the stolen heaven, that he got his hands on during the altercation with Sasuke, and lit it aflame. Sakura could only watch in utter horror, as her team's only chance of passing this exam burned to a crisp. You monster, you won't get away with this, Sakura said, only for Orochimaru to laugh. I'm afraid your too late, little girl, as not even your white-haired friend was able to stop me. Orochimaru said, with Sakura gasping. What did you do to him? Tell me, she said. He's crossed over to the afterlife, my dear, a place you shall soon join. He was interrupted when a spike of chakra appeared. He then looked to the side, only to be soaked so hard that he flew through 5 trees and hit a very sturdy one with the swell of his back. The snake ninja then looked up to see another fist heading for him, but he was lucky enough to move his head out of the way and push himself with a branch. But was soon short-lived, as a blast of wind launched him to yet another tree, but due to him being ready for it, angled his body to land on the branch behind him and place his Rizumon Kusanagi in front of his body. In no less than a fraction of a second did a fist appear, and was now in between the blade itself and his blood leaking from the wound. Orochimaru looked at the person with his arm in between his blade, and saw that it was none other than Naruto, with glowing bright gold-colored eyes that spoke untold amounts of rage. You? How are you still alive after I stabbed you in your stomach? He said, only for Naruto to remove his left arm, then grabbed Orochimaru's throat and slammed him into the tree behind him. You should have made sure that you had the job done, he said as he held up his right hand and began to form a Rasengan. But this one was different, as it was pure gold with a black orb in the center and a red glow surrounding it. Naruto then slammed it into Orochimaru's gut while calling out, Solar Flare Rasengan. The explosion behind the blast was astonishing, as it covered the entire area that surrounded them and illuminated anything within the distance. When the light died down, it showed the tree Naruto hit was burnt to nothing but ashes, and the surrounding trees were currently burning with flames licking the bark. Naruto himself looked around the area to try and find what remained of Orochimaru, only to see that what he hit wasn't the snake Sannin but a substitution clone. He then heard a cough and saw Orochimaru standing on one of the burning tree holding his left arm, which had 3/4 of it missing. Orochimaru growled as his left eye was burned in the blast as well, with blood trailing his cheek. You bastard, I should have killed you when I had the chance, Orochimaru said before he began to sink into the branch below his feet. We will meet again, boy, and next time you will die by my hands, he said before he was gone completely. Naruto then began to feel his power output begin to rise violently, as the seal placed over the seal of the Kyuubi began to crackle purple lightning, while the Kyuubi's seal glowed bright red before also infusing into purple itself, then turning to a full gold color. Naruto's body shook itself violently before a scream erupted from his throat and echoed all over the area. The scream soon turned into a demonic roar before gold chakra exploded from his body and headed towards the sky. The chakra was so strong that it was felt all throughout the Leaf Village, and even as far as the towns and lands surrounding Fire Country. Sakura still hid behind one of the trees she stayed on, trying to cover her eyes from the light and protect herself from the wind. When it stopped, Sakura was able to head towards the location of the burst of energy, and saw the figure standing there, but before she could get a good look of the figure, a burst of gold light came over him, and soon revealed that it was Naruto. Before Sakura could say anything, the boy fell forward and was out like a light. End flashback. Sakura sighed deeply as she placed a wet towel over Naruto and Sasuke's head. She looked at both boys, and couldn't believe that she was in this type of position. She was now alone. No Naruto, no Sasuke, no Kakashi. Nobody to be her knight in shining armor or protect her from dangers. She looked at Sasuke and placed a hand on his cheek as he coiled in pain. Orochimaru did something to you that's giving you so much pain. She then looked at Naruto and sighed. And you still continue to forbid me from knowing you. Why, Naruto? I understand that the way I treated you was wrong, but why are you not trying to understand that I want to be there for you, to be your friend? Please, Naruto, let me in, she said with a slight tear trailing her face, only to hear a faint whisper say no. 3 hours later, Sakura came back under the tree after setting up traps that would give her a good offense and protect both her and her teammates. Now sure, she wasn't the best trap maker, as that was one of the only things that she knew Naruto dominated in. She was confident that hers were at least up to par with what Naruto could make. She began to feel dozy but shook herself awake, knowing that she had to keep a constant guard on the surroundings, so that if a team comes by and tried to attack them, she would trigger one of the traps. Unknown to her, however, was that as she sat within the hollow tree with her unconscious teammates, the genin team from the Hidden Sound village watched her quietly, after finding her position hours ago. "It appears the target has yet to fall asleep," said the mummy-looking sound ninja named Dosu. "Why are we even waiting? Let's take them out now while we have an opening," said a black-haired ninja named Zaku. "Yeah, I agree with Zaku. Why are we waiting for the Uchiha to awaken when we can take them out now?" said the only kunoichi in the group named Kin. "I understand what you mean by that, but we were given a mission from Orochimaru-sama, and we must not fail him," Dosu said with his teammates nodding their heads. "What are we going to do about the girl? It's obvious that she is the weakest of the group for Orochimaru to do nothing to her, so what should we do about her?" Kin asked. "It's all right, as the second we attack, we'll take her out first and await for the Uchiha to awaken. Remember that the objective is that he does not leave here alive," Dosu said with the others nodding their heads. The next day. The sun rose 9 hours after that moment, as Sakura awoke from her slumber and fought against the body's desire to get extra sleep. However, her teammates have yet to awaken from their slumber as well. After a quick survey of the area, she noticed that the traps weren't set off. Not even the one that was almost set off when a squirrel tried to approach her and forced her to use what little energy she had left in her body to throw a shuriken at it, and stop the little animal in its tracks and run away. Sakura yawned loudly before she stepped out of the tree in order to get in some of the morning air and feel the sunshine before she would try to get Naruto and Sasuke out of this location and hopefully to another area closer to the tower. However, that wouldn't occur today, as today was the day she would be involved in the biggest fight of her life, as the OTO ninja came out of their position and were now standing before the girl. "Sleep well?" asked the questioning voice of Dosu that instantly caught the girl's attention and made her look towards him. "No need to look surprised. Now be a dear, wake up Sasuke, we have some business to do with him," Dosu said with Sakura pulling out a kunai and stood her ground. "No, you're lying. I know that Orochimaru person is the one controlling the strings hidden in the shadows. What is his purpose here, and what did he do to Sasuke-kun?" Sakura said, getting shocked reactions. "Your boss put some type of weird mark on his neck that causing him so much pain, and yet you guys want to fight him? What kind of game is Orochimaru playing?" Sakura said, though Dosu was the only one that pondered her statement. "Yes, what kind of game is that man playing?" he muttered to himself before he faced the girl. "While Orochimaru-sama's actions are indeed questionable, I'm afraid that I cannot allow you to live with that type of knowledge," Dosu said with his black-haired teammate stepping forward. "All right, I'll kill this bitch and then it's that Sasuke guy," he said, stepping forward and stood in front of his two teammates and prepared to fight Sakura, who was inwardly smirking to herself as Zaku almost fell into the trap. "Zaku, wait a moment," Dosu said, getting his teammates' attention. Dosu then stepped in front of Zaku and placed his hand on the trap Sakura set. "You must be at novice level if you think that you can fool people like us so easily. There is a recently overturned stone, the grass you laid down is of a different color. And to make matters more interesting, grass doesn't grow in this type of vegetation. You must be the type of person that thinks they're strong, or are too concerned with their looks to step up a bogus bobby trap like this," Dosu said, exposing the trap to his teammates, making both scoff. "So that was why you threw the shuriken. You didn't see our trap, you wanted to make it didn't set off yours," Zaku said with Kin scoffing loudly before she looked at Sakura. "No wonder you teammates are unconscious. You're just a loser trying to impress someone," she said with Sakura standing still, but her body began to shake slightly, proving Kin's point. "See, look at you. You're not even trying to pose a threat to us and yet you consider yourself a shinobi? What a joke," Kin said before she and her teammates hopped into the air, knowing that she probably set more than one ground trap. However, they didn't see Sakura's smirk as she threw her kunai at a small tripwire. The kunai cut right through it and set off the next trap, which was a swinging log coming down fast at the three-sound ninja. Zaku, however, snorted and extended both of his arms before the tree. "Is this the best you could do?" he said as he placed his palms on the log, and in a quick flash the log blew apart. "Quite frankly speaking, you have no talent, and a person with no talent will never hold the skill enough to defeat the likes of us from Otogakure," Dosu said, as he raised his right arm above his head, getting ready to take down Sakura with one attack. But luck would soon be on Sakura's side as black blur intercepted them, and they all were thrown, of course, and each landed on their butts. Sakura looked up to see that the person that saved her was none other than Lee, standing with his arms in the lotus fist stance. Attacking a lady is one thing, but to triple team on her is an unforgivable act that will require my services," Lee said with his eyes hidden from view by his glasses. After activating the Mashingan, he learned that the only way to neutralize them was to block them, and thus would help him keep as much chakra as possibly and only use his eyes in an emergency. "Who are you?" Sakura asked, though she did recognize him as one of the people that talked to Naruto before they even started this exam. "I am Konoha's Black Hurricane," Rock Lee said with his glasses, giving off the reflected light from the sun to make him look a little cooler. "However, I find it strange that the three of you are able to fight a young lady all at once, but when you're up against me, you seem less likely to fight now," Lee said, getting mad reactions from the Sound Ninja. "Lee-san, why are you here?" Sakura asked, getting Lee to look in her direction. "Unlike a certain someone, I'm more than willing to protect you for the reason of protecting an innocent person," he said before returning his attention back to the Sound Ninja. "Let's see, Sakura-chan is in no condition to fight. Both Sasuke and Naruto-kun are out of it, and I'm outnumbered 3-1. Sounds like good odds to me," he thought, running forward in a quick burst of speed. Meanwhile, "Damn it! Why can't we find a team that's weaker than us?" exclaimed Ino as she threw her arms in the air in exhaustion of not finding a single team that was easy for them to beat. "Because all the weaker teams were taken out before we could get to them. I always thought that Team 7 was weaker because of Naruto, but nowadays that's not the case anymore, if that's stats that Kabuto character told us before the first exam started," Shikamaru said as he remembered during his days in the academy in which himself, Choji, Kiba, and Naruto would skip school and hang out at a park just to chill. They were the best of friends during that time, and hopefully in the future they can strengthen that friendship. "Plus they have the smart, strong, and drop-gorgeous Sasuke on their team," Ino said with a far out in her face, only to be brought back by a snort from Shikamaru. "Please, that pretty boy only thinks he can fight, but in truth he's just full of himself and that highly inflated ego of his," Shikamaru said with Ino ready to object until Choji spoke. "Look, both Sasuke and Naruto are out cold and Sakura's fighting along with someone else," said Choji with the others running up to the spot that they were watching Sakura fight with Lee taking on the two boys. Sakura panted hard in exhaustion as she pulled out another kunai against the Sound Kunoichi. Off to the side, Lee was faring well against the two Sound Ninja. They tried to double-team him with Zaku sending his special air blast technique, due to the holes in his hands meant to help him channel his chakra into air blasts that devastates the land he attacks, and Dosu using the special sound bracers in his arms that allows him to control the sound waves within the air and attack the victim's eardrum. That would have worked, if not for Lee's new healing factor and the fact that he was strong enough to withstand through the attack. Sakura thought that he was in trouble when she saw that and rushed to his side in order to repay him for helping her. However, her attempts to surprise their opponents was stopped when Zaku sent them right back at her with his attack. After she was blown back, she found herself on her knees with her hair in the grip of the Sound Kunoichi that she forgot about. Lee would have gone to save her, but the boys continued to double-team him, making his attempts futile. "You see, you're not cut out to be a shinobi. You don't even have the decency to cover your hair up knowing that such a bright color will be so easy to spot by a mile," Kin said, making her grip on Sakura's hair tighter. Sakura herself was now held within a crossroad that went back all the way to her childhood. It was the day that she and Ino stopped being the best of friends. She remembered a rumor going around the academy that Sasuke liked long-haired girls and that Ino liked him like she did. She would end her friendship and grow out her hair as an attempt to get Sasuke's love. Her hair was a symbol of her immaturity and willingness to get a boy's attention. If she ever wanted to prove to Naruto that she was in no shape or form useless, she had to make a change. As such, she gripped her kunai tightly before she cut the very hair that she had been growing since her childhood off of her head, and released Kin's grip on her head. Sakura then went into the offensive and fought with what little she could, such as throwing weapons, using the substitution jutsu frequently and other things until pretty soon Zaku got tired of her weak antics and blasted her back to the tree that held her two still unconscious teammates. It was at that moment that Team 10 was ready to intervene in this fight, seeing as how Sakura was in a pretty bad situation that could threaten her very life. Ino drew a kunai, and was prepared to charge in there only for a voice to cut through the air that made everyone freeze, as said voice sounded both human and demonic at the same time. "What the fuck is going on here?" asked the demonic-edged voice of Naruto, who stepped out of the hollow tree with gold chakra surrounding him like wildfire, and would transform into something very demonic-looking to himself, once every 9 seconds. Everyone's attention was drawn solely to him as he looked at Sakura and saw the scars and bruises all over her body. "Sakura, who did this to you?" Naruto asked, making Sakura point towards the sound shinobi who were now ready to take him on. Naruto turned his gold-silted eyes towards the group of sound shinobi as he walked forward with the gold chakra still surrounding him, and the change in form continued on. Naruto snarled at all three before his face formed a dark smile that caused those that saw it to gasp in horror. It looks like I get to vent my anger out. It's a shame that I don't kill girls, but I suppose you two bitches will be more than enough. Every voice making everyone feel the dark and coldness within it. But the only one that was brave enough to shake off the fear was Zaku, who got in front of the others and raised both of his hands in the air to use his strongest move technique. I don't care who you think you are, you're still no match for me, Zaku said, unleashing his most powerful air blast in Naruto's direction. As it neared, Naruto let loose a mighty roar that summoned his chakra to defend against the air blast and completely decimate it. Naruto then ceased the roar and cracked his neck before walking towards Zaku. Okay, I guess you're up first, Naruto said with his voice still holding the firm edge that it held over them. He then released a powerful surge of killing intent that made everyone around him collapse to the ground under pressure in a cold sweat. Naruto then approached the sound shinobi in a slow stalking-like manner before he vanished in thin air. Before Zaku could respond, Naruto appeared before the sound ninja and slammed his hand into Zaku's gut, making the boy double over, before the boy spun around and nailed the sound genin in the back of his head and forced him to get on his knees. But it wasn't over there, as Naruto grabbed hold of Zaku's arms and slammed his foot over Zaku's spinal cord and began to pull on it, making the boy scream out in pain. These arms of yours are the result of annoyance. Let's take care of that problem now, shall we? Naruto said before he twisted them hard, giving off a loud cracking sound that was heard all around the area. Everyone's mouth was agape at that, as Zaku screamed out in pain before Naruto raised his foot and slammed his foot on the back of Zaku's head, knocking the boy out. Naruto then grasped the handle of his gun, Reaper, and released a quick round of, which curved its direction and nailed Dosu in his arm, making the boy shout in pain and grab the wound. Dosu looked at the white-haired boy in fear as he held the gun in his hand with a firm grip. Naruto then stopped and looked Dosu in the eye. You have two choices, both of which you lose something. One, you can get you and your team along with that trash out of here, or two, you can stick around long enough for me to get really pissed off. And you don't want that. I tend to do devilish things when I'm in that kind of emotional state, Naruto said with a devilish smirk on his face while the demonic edge left his voice and spoke in his normal tone. Dosu didn't need to be told twice, as he took out the scroll his team held and placed it on the ground. He then picked up Zaku's unconscious body and was about to leave until he stopped to speak. Tell me something, was it really you that destroyed Orochimaru-sama's arm? He asked with Naruto nodding. I see, Dosu said as he got ready to leave, but this time Sakura stopped them. Wait, what did Orochimaru do to Sasuke? She asked as she got up to her feet and looked at the mummy-looking genin. I don't know what he did, but if I had to guess I would say that he's already dead, Dosu said with Sakura gasping. Dosu then took that moment to leave along with Kin. Naruto then picked up the scroll and examined it before he pulled out Reaper and blasted 5 rounds. 3 bullets flew towards the bush and the remaining 2 flew into the tree that once housed him, then placed the gun back in his hoister. In no less than 2 seconds, Ino came out steaming mad at the white-haired genin. What the hell, Naruto, you could have killed me, she said with Choji and Shikamaru to stand up as well, though they weren't as mad. Ino, it didn't even hit us. It flew over our heads and hit the trees behind us, he said lazily with Choji nodding his head. In the trees, Tenten and Neji came out of their hiding spots, which made Lee smirk. You know that was me, Naruto-kun, Tenten said, getting to the ground and walking up to Naruto with said boy smirking at her. Don't, baby, I'll make it up to you, he said as she placed her arms around his neck and planted a soft kiss on his lips, making everyone gasp as the two parted. Before anything could be said, a surge of chakra swept over the area with a heavy feeling of malice and evilness within itself. Neji, on the tree branch closets to the chakra, activated his Byakugan to see that the source was coming from the body of Uchiha Sasuke, which was now standing tall. Sasuke looked far different from before, as the whole right side of his body was covered in what looked like burn marks along with his Sharingan, spinning wildly in its 2-pronged form. Sasuke gave a quick survey of the area, until his eyes locked on Naruto's, and began to give off more power than before. Naruto, seeing this, stepped in front of Tenten to protect her from the feeling of the chakra. Everyone felt scared around Sasuke, but Naruto and Lee were the only ones that appeared to be unaffected by the chakra. Fight me, Dobi, it's time for us to see which one is superior to the other, Sasuke said, with Naruto shrugging his shoulders before a serious look donned his face. Okay, but the fight isn't going to last long, nor will it be you that leaves victorious, Naruto said before he went into the lotus stance, and looked on with an emotionless face. Sasuke took that as his cue to attack the white-haired boy. Sasuke charged while using hand signs and called out, "Fire style, Phoenix Flower Jutsu," and launched the mini-fire balls at Naruto. The boy dodged with ease before he waited for his moment to strike. It came no sooner as Sasuke appeared before him with a right aimed at the boy's head. Instead, he was greeted with a boot to his jaw by Naruto in a crouched position while kicking in an upward motion. Sasuke flew through the air while Naruto appeared behind him. "Do you still think I'm weak?" Naruto asked before he sent a right kick to Sasuke's ribs before he elevated himself over the Uchiha and sent a right to the boy's face, making him hit the tree behind him. Sasuke landed on the ground face first as Naruto landed on his feet and began to walk away. When the Uchiha got up to his feet, Naruto turned on the balls of his feet and aimed Reaper at Sasuke's forehead before pulling the trigger and nailed the boy right in the center of his head, thus knocking him out. The others stood shocked as Naruto just took down Sasuke, without even breaking a sweat. Naruto then hoisted the gun into his pouch before he grabbed the Uchiha and looked at Sakura. "Let's go, Haruno," he said before he left the area. Sakura quickly regained her senses, along with Team 10 and Team 9. They arrived as a whole to the tower, and inside they read a poem which led to Naruto unraveling and throwing the 2 scrolls he earned on the ground. Shikamaru and Neji followed suit, and soon came the appearance of Kakashi, Asuma, and Guy. After a brief word to their students, and a little talk of what transpired within the forest, they were dismissed until further notice. Naruto himself dropped Sasuke, and walked straight to the quarters that they were staying. He was so tired from the events today, and he really wanted to sleep. The remaining days have come and gone, and now Team 7 stood amongst the others that passed through the forest and completed the second exam. Among them were the Rookie 9, Team Guy, Kabuto's team, the team from Otio and the team from Suna. Anko stood before them all with a blank look on her face, however she would have her eyes look in Naruto's direction once every few minutes. Said white-haired boy yawned into his hand as he looked at the front with a bored look. The last 3 days were spent on doing nothing but sleeping and eating. It was also during that time he got a little action with Hinata after he felt his lust for her overload his self-control, though the white-eyed girl didn't mind one bit, though she wished her leg would work at 100% during the next exam. "I told those brats that I would cut them all in half, though 21 is a bit disappointing. I was kinda hoping that only a few would make it," Anko said before she nodded towards the Hokage. "Your team is quite impressive, Kakashi, but perhaps they just got lucky this one time. However, with me team here, your team would have to do the impossible and accomplish what many would think they cannot," Guy said quietly, only to see Kakashi was reading his book. The masked Junin picked up his head and looked towards Guy. "I'm sorry, Guy, did you say something just now?" Kakashi said, with his patented eye smile. "Darn you, Kakashi, with your hip attitude, I swear that I will beat you once more and prove that the flames of youth shall prosper again," Guy yelled, while forming a fist with his eyes igniting with fire along with his fist, thus causing the masked ninja to sweat drop before he turned his full attention back to the teams before him. "For some odd reason I can't say that I have a good feeling about all this," Sasuke mumbled under his breath before he grunted in pain and grabbed hold of his shoulder. Sakura saw this and instantly got worried. "Sasuke-kun, you need to have that thing checked out. Who knows what would happen if that thing activates again," Sakura said with Sasuke turning his attention to her. "Sakura, I have no desire whatsoever to quit when I'm this far ahead in the game," he said with Sakura giving him a completely worried look. "Please Sasuke-kun, you must give up," she was saying, before he gave her a hard glare that completely silenced her. "I'm not quitting, Sakura, not for anybody and especially not for you. I am an Avenger, and this is the way I want to go down in order to reach my goal," he said with his mark pulsing before Naruto spoke, catching all 3 of their attentions. "Uchiha, you are already going down a bad path with that demonic hickey on your neck. If you lose yourself to that power, then you won't have to worry about your desire because I will make sure it ends right then and there," he said looking at Sasuke, with his eyes looking into his charcoal black eyes. Sasuke felt the scowl on his face. "It's amazing to see this many genin make it to the next level with most of them being rookies. No wonder the senseis were confident with their abilities," Sarutobi thought looking at Kakashi, Kurenai, Guy and Asuma from the corner of his eye before he cleared his throat rather loudly, catching everyone's attention. Now to everyone that has made it this far, must congratulate all of you on passing the second exam. Now listen carefully as Hokage-sama now wishes to take the floor, and to explain to you all what the third test shall be. Anko said with Sarutobi taking that floor. He then went into a well-given presentation on the importance of the exam, as it was a required replacement for war among the allied countries. He also stated that the point of the exam was to help keep the peace, and to prevent pointless battles, as well as pointless deaths among shinobi. He also stated that it was thanks to this initiative that more clients would be willing to hire shinobi villages for missions with the presenting of the village's own prestige, and thus increase the village's economy. The more the genin impress the individuals that can make future clients with the shinobi villages, then the more clients will come to their village. To say that everyone was surprised was an understatement. It was only until the appearance Gekko Hayate appeared before the genin did the Hokage stop his lecture. Cough, Hokage-sama. Please forgive my interruption, but as the referee of this exam, please allow me to explain, Hayate said with Sarutobi nodding and giving the sickly-looking Jonin the floor. Hayate then turned to the genin, making Naruto raise an eyebrow as he looked the man over. He was dressed in the uniform most Jonin wore and was using his headband as a bandana. That, however, wasn't what caught the white-haired genin's attention, as the man was quite pale and had large bags under his eyes. All in all, he looked half dead, which made everyone wonder how the man was able to be a shinobi while looking that sick. Hello everyone, cough, I am Hayate, the proctor for the third exam. However, before we can begin said exam, I must inform you all that you must go through a preliminary round before we can move onward to the main event. Hayate said, getting an instant reaction from some of the genin. Why do we have to have a preliminary? Don't we all have the chance to continue after making it this far? Sakura asked. To be completely honest to you all, you gone through the easy part of the exam since all you had to do was gather information, and learn your way around a surrounding, while simultaneously working to complete a missionary objective. The simple fact that 7 teams completed the first 2 exams this year means that it's getting too easy. In order to maintain the right amount, we must reduce the number of you all to a manageable number for the third test. Also the reason for the preliminary. As indicated by Hokage-sama, there will be many guests attending with very busy schedules, and we ourselves as limited on time. Hayate explained with everyone seemingly understanding what he was saying. Now then, before we begin this exam, I must ask to anyone that wishes to quit this portion of the exam if they aren't up to snuff yet, please come forward now so we can begin the prelims. After waiting for a few minutes and Sakura almost raising her hands for Sasuke's sake, only to be chewed out by said Uchiha, only one hand was raised. Naruto himself scoffed at Sakura's feeble attempts to get him to quit, as doing that was like him trying to put the moves on Sakura to have a one-night stand with her, or him telling her that she's beautiful, isn't going to happen. Anyway, the one person's hand just so happened to be Kabuto, who claimed that he lost too much of his chakra and sustained an injury that hasn't healed yet. With that said, the boy turned to leave the area, when Naruto stopped him dead in his tracks, as well as getting everyone's attention. Kabuto, I have a distinct feeling that you aren't telling the full truth. However, I have an exam to win, so I'll let you go. But know this: never cross paths with the devil again, or hell's judgment will soon call to you, he said, releasing a quick blast of Ki. Kabuto then gasped when he felt something go across his chest. He looked behind his back and saw Naruto standing tall with rebellion on his back. Kabuto then felt his chest explode, and his blood covering the floor below his feet. Reality kicked in as Kabuto felt his chest and was marveled that he didn't get killed just now. Kabuto then turned and walked out of the door, very careful not to let his emotions get the better of him and reveal his fighting skills, thus drawing unwanted attention his way. Once Kabuto was gone, and seeing as how nobody else wished to quit the exam, Hayate then moved on. He gave a quick and simple speech on what the rules of the prelims were, and the simple fact was that there were no rules. All the fights were no holds barred. A fight would go on until either the opponent surrendered, knocked out, or, well, killed. Once he said that an electronic screen appeared installed within one of the walls. Once he explained that all matches would be selected at random. The screen then shuffled the name before 2 were selected, which made Sakura gasp. Uchiha Sasuke versus Akado Yoroi. Sakura was shocked to find that Sasuke was fighting first, but she would have to believe that he could fight without so much as breaking a sweat. Will every non-participant in the first match please head up to the balcony area, Hayate said. Everyone moved to the clearing. While on the way, Naruto heard Kakashi tell Sasuke not to activate his Sharingan, or else he would have to step in and stop the match. Naruto already contemplated that if that were to happen, the Uchiha's curse seal would activate, and that would force a DQ on his part. Naruto had a smirk on his face. knowing full well that without the Sharingan, the Uchiha was basically useless. Okay, the first match, Uchiha Sasuke versus Akata Yoroi, Hajime, Hayate said before he jumped back. Sasuke was on the defensive the entire match, dodging attacks left and right, as his opponent held the ability to drain a person of his chakra and use it as his own. Naruto was confused to learn of such an ability existing, as there was never any records regarding a clan that could absorb another person's chakra. However, in the end though, Sasuke proved once more that his Sharingan was the only thing that made him strong. Sasuke ducked under a punch from Yoroi before he kicked upward in a crouched position. Naruto's eyes narrowed at that, as he knew that was his technique, and Sasuke copied it during their fight in the forest. Now that bastard had the nerve to claim this was his original maneuver, using the initial kick from the primary lotus technique and the dancing leaf shadow technique, and then added a different flair to it by adding in some mid-air combos before he slammed the heel of his foot into Yoroi's chest, calling Lion's Combo. Once the match ended and Sasuke was declared the winner, Kakashi appeared behind him and took him away from the area. After waving everyone off, he disappeared along with Sasuke in order to patch up that seal on his neck. Once the medics got Yoroi out of the area, the randomizer started once more and soon revealed the name of those in the second match. Aburame Shino versus Akimichi Choji. Oh man, why do I have to face Shino? Choji asked with Shikamaru patting him on his back and told him good luck. Shino didn't say anything as he stood with his arms hidden in his overcoat pockets. The second match between Aburame Shino versus Akimichi Choji, Hajime, he said. The match only lasted about a good 2 minutes, due to Shino having to recall his bugs whenever Choji would enter into his expansion jutsu, and use the meat tank technique that his clan is so fond of. Shino kept dodging around the area with Choji, not too far behind the boy, until Shino got an idea. After he dodged yet another strike from Choji, Shino landed in front of one of the walls, and awaited for the bog boy to take the bait. He did, as he rolled his body in pretty fast speed and would have hit Shino, had said boy not jump over him and thus trapped him in the wall. Shino would then unleash a swarm of his bugs and would then have them feed on Choji's chakra, but only enough to knock him unconscious. Shino may not have that many friends, but to the few that he had, he was by far the most loyal out of everyone. After taking Choji's chakra, the jutsu dispelled itself and soon revealed a swirl-eyed Choji, who gave up the match to Shino. Once the boy was declared the winner, he walked towards the stands, while Choji himself was carted away by the medics, even though they had some difficulties at first due to his size. Once his body was cleared, the screen started again and 2 names were picked. Kunkuro no Sabaku versus Tsurugi Misumi. Now this matchup caught Naruto's attention, as he wanted to see what abilities Kunkuro held. The match started with Misumi revealing that he had the ability to release the bones in his body, and make his body intangible like rubber. Once that was revealed, Misumi would then wrap his entire body around Kunkuro, and after a quick struggle did Misumi break the neck of Kunkuro, after he refused to forfeit the match. It was then directly after did people learn that Kunkuro wasn't really dead, as his neck snapped behind his head, and looked at Misumi before wood revealed itself. It was then that Kunkuro revealed that the person Misumi was trying to kill was none other a puppet, as a pair of arms burst out from within the jumpsuit it was wearing, and was now squeezing the life out of Misumi. Kunkuro himself appeared from the wrapped bundle with chakra strings attached to his fingers, and was connected directly to his hands. He basically revealed that he himself was the puppeteer to the puppet itself. Kunkuro then applied hard pressure onto Misumi, who surrendered the match immediately, only for Kunkuro to give one more squeeze which knocked out Misumi. Kunkuro then dropped the rubber boy's body on the ground as he rewrapped his puppet, and walked back to the stands. Naruto himself had a large smirk on his face, as he had hoped that the boy would pose a threat later on. After the medics got the body of Misumi, the screen lit up, and 2 more names were placed together. Nara Shikamaru versus Inuzuka Kiba. Yes, too bad we didn't get the dough but Shikamaru with dough, right Akamaru? Kiba said, getting a bark from his dog companion as he jumped over the railing and down to the ground, while Shikamaru muttered troublesome to himself before walked down to the floor and stood before an eager Kiba. Hayate then declared the match to begin, and wasting very little time was Kiba, as he matched a quick seal and called out, "Beat Mimicry, all fours jutsu," before charging at the lazy boy, who simply dodged to the left and allowed the boy to miss horribly. Kiba wasn't fazed by it as he planted his foot on the ground, before jumping at Shikamaru while calling out Piercing Fang, and turned into a tornado of sorts. Naruto watched the match with slight boredom, as Kiba seemed to continue to try and hit the boy only for Shikamaru to keep dodging the attacks by the dog boy. "Shikamaru, will you just take this guy out already?" Naruto said with Shikamaru muttering troublesome white-haired boy before he stood ready for spinning Inuzuka clan member. The dog boy flew at him in quick speed before Shikamaru jumped to the side and allowed the boy to pass. Kiba however didn't notice that he was heading for the wall, only for him to slam his head and knocked himself out into the wall behind Shikamaru. To that wasn't funny was a huge understatement, as Naruto, Anko and Lee were on the ground rolling, while the others were just holding in the chuckles in their throats. When Kiba was taken back to the medical center, the next set of names were chosen, and one of them made the white-haired boy frown. Tsukiyakari Tenten versus Haruno Sakura. Sakura looked completely confident that she would win against this girl, and proved to Naruto that she wasn't useless until Naruto spoke. "Sakura, forfeit the match and save us all some time," the boy said, making Sakura gasp before she spoke. "Why should I? You already think I'm useless, so I'm going to prove you wrong," she said, feeling a little hurt, but she had to remember that the boy didn't like her nor trust her anymore. "I'm not saying that just because I think you're worthless. I'm saying it out of pity to Ten-chan. You won't even be a challenge to her, though Temari-chan would defiantly give her a run for her money," he said with Tenten blushing at the fact that Naruto was confident in her ability as a kunoichi, and Temari for Naruto saying that she was strong, even though she hasn't fought yet. Sakura, however, felt herself tear up before she got a determined look on her face and walked down to the floor. Naruto himself sighed deeply before he looked at what would be an extremely easy fight for Tenten. Once Sakura arrived to the floor, her serious look never left her, but Tenten had a rather dull and bored look on her face. She could easily tell that this girl wasn't kunoichi material, and soon felt the need to nip it in the bud and spoke. "You should listen to Naruto-kun, he knows what he's talking about when it comes to fighting," Tenten said with Sakura looking like she was getting pretty mad. "No, I'm going to finally prove once and for all that I am not worthless, and beat you right here," Sakura said with Naruto sighing. "I warned her," he thought before Hayate raised his arms. The fifth match between Tsukiyakari Tenten and Haruno Sakura, Hajime. Sakura wasted little time in making the first move, as she threw 3 kunais at Tenten before she ran at the girl while doing some seals and brought out 3 clones. Tenten sighed as she dodged the first kunai but grabbed the last 2 in the air and threw it back at the pink-haired girl that took out her 2 clones in a quick flash. Tenten then stepped aside, as Sakura sent a flying kick at her head and pushed her away from her and made Sakura trip on her own 2 feet. Sakura did regain her footing and sent the heel of her right foot at Tenten's head, which was caught before she was thrown across the floor and landed on her chest. Tenten sighed as she approached the pink-haired. "If that is the best that you can do, then what's the point of getting serious in this? I'm only giving you one last chance for you to give up. Someone playing ninja has no way to beat one," Tenten said in a harsh tone, with Sakura getting up from the ground and coughed hard for a moment before getting the air back in her lungs. "I'm not playing ninja, I earned this headband and I plan to prove to you the reason why I earned it," she said with Tenten scoffing. "Please, the only requirement is that you pass a written exam, make a few clones and impress your sensei with teamwork. Naruto-kun said it himself, if I didn't change my whole act before the test and stayed as that weak little blonde boy, I still would have became a genin. Just face the facts, you're worthless," Tenten said with Sakura finally losing it. She then removed her headband that she used to hold her hair back and tied it around her forehead. She then launched another kunai at the weapons mistress before she charged forward while creating 2 more clones. All 3 then ran in a crisscrossing pattern before they were full ready to attack. Too bad for her, Tenten already knew this trick, as she slapped the kunai away and ran at pink-haired girl. 1 clone sent a wide-angle kick at Tenten's head, only for the girl to duck under it and held her right arm back. When Sakura neared, Tenten then sent an uppercut that nailed Sakura in her chin and sent her into the air before she fell on her back and skidded across the floor. The pink-haired girl would then try to pick herself up but found that she couldn't do so no matter how hard she tried. Tenten then shook her head in disappointment before she spoke to Sakura. "Did you actually think that that would work? To use an academy-level method of tactics on a 2-year genin? Naruto-kun said that at the academy you were recognized as the smartest amongst your generation's new genins. Yet here you are using the method learned in the academy," Tenten said with Sakura looking down, though Tenten felt much more was needed to be said. "Besides, Naruto-kun told me everything that you are in shinobi terms. All you do is fawn over that pathetic Uchiha, who doesn't even try to acknowledge your existence, much less who you are. In addition, to further make matters worse, all you do is follow that emo you call a teammate like a sick puppy, instead of spending your time training or improving your skills. If you quit thinking with your pussy, and start using what people acknowledge you for behind that movie screen-length forehead of yours, you may get Naruto-kun's acknowledgement," she said as she walked away from the still-downed girl, who passed out and was picked up by her sensei. Tenten then walked up to Naruto and surprised everyone when she gave him a small kiss before she smirked at him. "How did I do, Naruto-kun?" she asked while grinding her hips over Naruto's crouch area. "Like a lady after my heart," he said with her smiling at him, knowing that he was cheering for her even though he already knew she would win the match. The screen lit up once more and revealed the next match to all that were to participate. Temari versus Yamanaka Ino. "Damn, Temari-chan got an easy one too," Naruto said quietly to Tenten and Hinata, as Ino and Temari stood on the floor. "Naruto-kun, don't say that. Ino-san could win this," Hinata said, only to see Naruto shake his head, indicating that he said no. "She's worse compared to Sakura, with the only improvement is that she has one jutsu more than what Sakura has, but it's useless unless she can catch her opponent off guard, which is also impossible. She is also a far worse fangirl than Sakura is, as if you even asked to take her training seriously she would need something for you to bribe her with. Besides, Temari is by far better, since she has been training since the day she could walk, and judging by the size of that fan she's quite strong with it. Ino is facing one of the worst opponents she could have," Naruto said with everyone looking shocked, as they listened in to the intellect of the boy. And indeed Naruto's words spoke the truth, because as soon as Hayate started the match, Temari opened her fan straight to the third moon and unleashed her wind scythe jutsu that sent Ino flying into the stands and hit the wall with full force, thus knocking her unconscious. Naruto sighed as Temari was declared the winner. When the blonde girl began to walk back to the stands, she looked in Naruto's direction and gave him a wink before walking to where her team was. "That's not a bad perception, kid," Kunkuro said, catching everyone's attention. "My sister is recognized as the strongest genin kunoichi throughout all of Suna, and that's mainly because Suna isn't as kind or soft-hearted as this village when it comes to genin. If it wasn't for the Kazukaga's desire to have her and myself be on the same team as Gaara, she would most likely be a Junin," he said with everyone just looking shocked. The screen on the wall once more flashed until two names were called that surprised people: Rock Lee versus Tsuchi Kin. Lee had a small smirk on his face as he walked down to the floor along with Kin following him as well before they both stood on the floor facing each other. "You know, normally I don't fight women, so I won't attack you," he said with Kin smirking to herself before she pulled out some senbon. "Okay then, I guess it'll be an easy win for me," Kin said with Hayate beginning the match. Kin was about to throw the senbon before Lee held up his hand and reached for his sunglasses. "I said I wouldn't attack you, not that I wouldn't fight you. I have other means to get the victory," he said before he pushed up his glasses and opened his eyes, with Kin preparing for whatever he had planned for her. Kin's eyes widened as she looked into Lee's Mashingan, as it glowed and spun around before Kin began to get a funny feeling in her lower body. She tried to ignore it, but it continued to return with more forcefulness than earlier until she could no longer resist it and began to play with herself in front of everyone. She then got down on her knees and feel unconscious from pleasure while muttering Lee-kun all throughout her period of being out of it, with a smile on her face that she received untold amounts of pleasures from sex. To say everyone was shocked was a complete understatement, as the girl seemed to be getting pleasure through unseen sexual intercourse. The guys all had smirks from seeing the live prono scene while the girls were muttering, "I'll have what she's having," under their breath. Lee soon felt the attention was on him, as he covered his eyes with his glasses. "I'm sure you're all wondering what I did. Well, it all came from a term known as devilish charm. I use that term to create a genjutsu that simulates the pleasure center in one's mind, in order to make the body of the victim feel the full pleasure the person's mind is feeling. In short, my genjutsu gives a literal meaning to the term, mind fuck," Lee said with everyone looking shocked, while Naruto himself smirked. The medics then came to pick up Kin's body, but Lee stopped them. "Don't bother, she'll awaken in 3, 2, 1, he said with Kin's eyes opening, and began to look around the area. Her eyes then landed on Lee, which made her squeal loudly before she ran up to the white-haired teen and planted a huge kiss on the teen lips, which was returned to the black-haired girl. After 30 seconds passed, the two separated from each other, and Lee walked back up to the stands with Kin closely behind. Lee then stood beside Naruto, who shook his hand and said, "Congrats, Playboy," before the screen lit up, and Naruto himself smirked at who was next. Gaara versus Kintadosu. "This is going to get bloody," Naruto said to himself, though everyone around him heard it. Before anyone could question him, Gaara exploded into sand and reappeared on the floor, shocking everyone since they never saw a jutsu like that before. Dosu himself made it to the floor, though he had a cocky look in his exposed eye. You seem to hold the ability to control the sands, so let's see what's stronger, your sand or my sound, he said with Gaara remaining silent with his hard look bearing into the eye of Dosu. Besides, you're just stepping stone to the person I want to face, that white-haired kid dressed in red. I'll be more than happy to take you down as a warm-up, Dosu said, pulling back his sleeve to reveal his amplifier. You shouldn't tempt me when I'm like this, when my blood boils. Mother is ready to feed, Gaara said before his cork popped out and sand began to leak out. The 8th match between Sabaku no Gaara versus Kinta Dosu. Hajime, he said with Dosu acting fast. He charged forward with his amplifier arm extended back. When he neared Gaara, he sent his fist forward, only to be shocked when he hit a sand wall that erupted from the ground. Gaara then extended his right arm and the sand then wrapped itself around Dosu like a cocoon. Gaara then lifted his arm into the air calling out, "Sand coffin." The cocoon then floated in the air due to Gaara's will, before the boy closed his hand calling, "Sand funeral." The cocoon then compressed within itself, and blood exploded from the sides of the cocoon that held Kinta Dosu. The sand funeral allows me to compress the air within it, and increase the pressure before he died. In truth he died a painless death, and his body shall be decomposed in the sand, Gaara said as he returned all the sand within his gourd, and then walked away with Hayate declaring him the winner. Many people were just flat out silent, including the newly awakened Sakura and Ino, who woke up from their respective slumbers. They couldn't believe the brutality that Gaara showed and his uncaringness on how he killed another human being. Naruto soon felt his smirk leave his face, however, as the next set of names were called for the next match. A match Naruto does not want to see. Hyuga Neji versus Hyuga Hinata. Hinata gasped and looked at Naruto with a worried look on her face. Said boy was gripping the railing in front of him hard and grinding his teeth against each other. Hinata then grasped his face and gave him a soft kiss before reassuring him with a smile on her face. Kurenai watched her student in mild surprise and happiness that she had finally told the boy how she felt, and no longer had helped her get the confidence to try. "Don't worry, I'll be fine, Naruto-kun," she said, with Naruto calming down before he nodded his head. "Just be careful, Hinata-chan," he said before he kissed her again. The girl then walked down to the floor and the match began, but it soon turned to a fight that can only be from the result of inter-clan turmoil. Neji started the match by berating Hinata and tried to knock down her self-esteem. It would have worked had Naruto not spoke to Hinata and helped her regain her confidence. It would then become one of the best fights in the whole prelims as they fought using their clan's taijutsu style known as the gentle fist. The match would go on for a full 3 minutes, with no one gaining the upper hand over the other, until they both struck each other in the chest. A pregnant pause came over them both before Hinata coughed up blood. Everyone was confused until Neji revealed with and showed the girl's arm. Hinata looked at her arm and gasped. Her whole arm was covered with red spots that went along her arm. "I can't believe it, this whole time you were—" she was saying until Neji cut her off. "Yes, this entire time I've been attacking and closing your chakra points so you are no longer able to use chakra for the rest of this fight," he said before he swatted her away like a fly. "I told you that you were weak and that fate is against you. In truth, you never once stood a chance against me and you were destined to be defeated by me," Neji said as he turned to walk away, but Hinata would shock everyone and stand back up. Naruto was beginning to feel his anger grow within him, as a light sheen of Kyuubi's chakra began to appear around him with he himself taking on his no-tail form. Neji himself was oblivious to all this as he was focused on Hinata. "Why do you defy fate, Hinata-sama?" Neji asked with said girl smiling a little. "Because unlike you, I have someone that I want to prove myself to, and gain my strength from. To me fate means nothing compared to him," Hinata said, which made Neji a little peeved. "You have become too clouded by fate and you're suffering for it. If you believe in it, then you're only being dishonest with yourself," she said, setting Neji off his rocker. "Shut up, you bitch, I'm not the delusional one here as you already chosen your own fate," he said, as he then charged at the girl with the full intent of killing her. He raised his right arm and sent out a right palm that connected, but not to Hinata but to Naruto's back, who was holding Hinata close to him. That one thing made everyone go wide-eyed as they never even seen the boy move that fast or move period. Neji himself was also shocked, but not because Naruto took the shot, but the fact that the boy wasn't staggering or showing any fatigue from the hit itself. Naruto held Hinata close to him as she smiled at the boy. "Hey Naruto-kun, how did I do?" she asked with a trickle of blood trailing her cheek. Naruto would then wipe it off her face and would look at her with a small smile. "You did great, Hinata, but you're hurt," he said with Hinata coughing loud enough for everyone to hear. The Junin senseis would then appear in front of Neji, should he try to attack Naruto and Hinata again. Kurenai herself looked towards her student with a sad look on her face. She didn't want her student to go through this type of turmoil but was happy that Naruto stepped in when he did, and stopped from what looked like a killing blow. Hinata, I'm going to try to heal you but I haven't perfected the move yet, so there is a chance I could mess up a bit, he said with Hinata nodding. It's okay Naruto-kun, if you can do it then I don't care about the repercussions, she said with Naruto smiling before he kissed her. It surprised everyone that he would do that in this kind of situation, but they soon discovered why, as Hinata glowed a bright white before the white surrounded her body and began to heal the wound she sustained from Neji's assaults. After 2 minutes, Naruto separated himself from a now unconscious Hinata and held her bridal style. The medics came with a moment to waste and took Hinata to the medical center. It was then that Naruto would expel the largest amount of killing intent he has ever produced, and said killing intent was solely directed on Neji. Neji himself was now feeling truly scared of the boy as he slowly approached the white-eyed teen. You better pray to your almighty God or that fate of yours, because when you and I fight, your ass will belong to the devil, Naruto said with his voice turning demonic, and his form changing for a brief moment, until it returned to his regular form, but with gold chakra surrounding his body. His eye turned to the silted blood reds of Kyuubi's, and glared straight into Neji's, like he was peering into the boy's very soul. The white-eyed boy quickly fled the area along with the Junin while Naruto remained where he was, his eyes never leaving Neji while Zaku arrived to the floor. Sparda Naruto versus Abumizaku. You know I was hoping that I would fight you, now I can pay you back for what you did to my arms, he said only for Naruto to direct his attention to Zaku and donned a completely blank look on his face. Naruto said nothing. Instead, all he did was turn to Zaku and started to smirk at Zaku, which made the boy shuddered in fear. It was the smirk of demon, ready to pounce on his prey and massacre him. He was going to kill something, and Zaku couldn't have come at a better time. I'm going to enjoy what I'm about to do to you within the next 30 seconds. Naruto said in a dark voice that was making everyone look on in fear. The final match Sparda Naruto versus Abumizaku Hajime, Hayate said as he jumped back, knowing that the white-haired boy was in the mood to kill and he wasn't going to be near him while he did it. It's payback time you bastard super slicer wa, he was saying until Naruto vanished from sight and buried his fist in Zaku's gut, making the boy cough up blood before Naruto slammed his left fist into the sound Genin's face that sent the boy onto towards ground. Naruto then let loose a roar as he slammed his now clawed right palm onto Zaku's face, giving the Oto Shinobi slash marks over his face and his left eye. Naruto then raised his right foot and slammed it into Zaku's lower back, making the boy cry out in pain. Naruto then grabbed Zaku's arms and with an ungodly roar, ripped both appendages from the sound boy's body. Zaku could only scream at the untold pain he now felt. Naruto quickly grabbed the boy by the back of his head and started to slam into the ground multiple times, the blood starting to appear with each slam he received, until Naruto gave one final slam into the ground and caused a small pool of blood to form around the boy's head. However, Naruto still wasn't done, as he then grabbed Zaku by his neck and hoisted him in the air. He then held up his right hand, and a gold energy sphere appeared in his hand, while he stared at Zaku, whose face was now covered with blood and some parts of his face caved, yet he was still alive. He looked at Naruto, whose hold around his neck was so strong that his lungs were filling up with blood, yet the white-haired knew what he was asking. I'm sure you're wondering how you are still alive. Well, the answer is simple. I'm keeping you alive. I want you to feel this, to feel my torment, my pain, and my anger, all of it. You are going to be the sacrifice towards Hyuga team as he will see what's in store for him when we dance, he said as he held up his right hand and brought forth a gold orb. Everyone stared in amazement of the attack the boy was using before Naruto spoke again. It's time to meet your oblivion, Solar Flare Rasengan, he called out as he slammed his orb into Zaku's stomach. A bright flash overtook the area as everyone covered their eyes from the light. When it cleared, everyone looked to see Naruto standing tall with his head looking towards the ground, while Zaku was nowhere to be found, only particles of ash floating in the air. That was by far the most disturbing display of brutality anyone has ever witnessed within the exams, and it was more surprising to see Naruto do it. Hayate quickly shook his head before he called the victor. The winner of the final match, Sparda Naruto, Hayate said with the boy turning his still blood-red eyes towards Neji, who gulped at the amount of untold madness behind them but soon reassured himself that he had nothing to fear. He shouldn't have to fear a New Year Genin, right? Naruto stood before the smiling Sandaime, along with the other winners in the preliminary round. Out of the 10 that made it to the end, 7 were from Konoha, 3 were from Suna, and the sound shinobi were all but dead except one that was currently trying to get to the one that defeated her. Congratulations to all those of you that have made it to the final round of the Chunin exams, even though one is missing, Hiruzen said before he went into an explanation on what the main exam was and what exactly it stood for. He stated that the main exam was meant for them to be viewed by high-standing figureheads and the people of their village. He also stated that they would be waiting for a full month before they would be able to fight in the finals of the exams. Now then, allow me to explain more to you all, as you won't be fighting like the way you have seen. Instead, you all shall be expecting your opponents and improve your ways to fight your opponent. The prelims were set so that you all wouldn't be able to expect your opponent's abilities like anyone would experience in any shinobi-like situation, in which you would have to fight an unknown enemy. He explained. Got that right. I would have never known that we had a guy here that can control sand, Shikamaru thought quickly, glancing at Gaara out of the corner in his eye. However, the final trail is set up so that you all know the person you're fighting and can thus improve yourself to their fighting style or to improve your own. You have seen the winners fight, and you know their techniques, so that way you can be better prepared to fight in a month's time. It also gives time to those that were injured in their fights to heal as well as train, Sarutobi said with Naruto rolling his eyes. However, it did give him time to fully master all of his devil arms and maybe created a new technique. Now then, before I dismiss you all, there is a matter that needs attending, and that is to find out who you're facing. There are pieces of paper within that box Anko is holding. In there you will draw one piece only, Hiruzen said calmly. Don't bother coming up, I'll come around, so you brats just wait your turn and take one piece of paper, Anko said as she walked along the line and allowed each kid to take the slips of paper. Once Anko was done, everyone was then instructed to reveal the number that they have drawn. 8, said Tenten, 1 said Naruto, 7 said Temari, 2 said Neji, 3 said Kunkuro, 5 said Gaara. Troublesome, 10 said Shikamaru, 6 said Lee, 9 said Shino. Then Sasuke has number 4. Ibiki said before he wrote out the match lineups and was shocked at what he saw. Okay, then everyone, let's see who you shall be facing, Sarutobi said with Ibiki revealing the lineup of matches, which shocked almost everyone there, but one had a smirk plastered on his face. Match 1, Sparda Naruto vs Hyuga Neji. Match 2, Sabaku no Kunkuro vs Uchiha Sasuke. Match 3, Sabaku no Gaara vs Rock Lee. Match 4, Sabaku no Temari vs Tsukiyakari Tenten. Match 5, Nara Shikamaru vs Aburame Shino. Man, I can't believe I'm last, Tenten thought with a frown. That Naruto kid is hot. I really hope I can get him back to Suno where we can play the pervert and the schoolgirl, thought Temari with a perverted smile on her face. Damn, I have to fight Shino. It's unfair, but at least I won't have to avenge Ino's loss, thought Shikamaru with an outside sigh. Praise Almighty God that I don't have to fight Gaara. You truly are awesome and merciful, Kunkuro thought as he now planned to get deeper in religion after he commits his adultery act first. Not bad. I get to fight Hyuga in the first round. And maybe even the team or Gaara or Lee, Naruto thought with a smirk on his face. Now before I dismiss you all, are there any questions? Asked Sarutobi before motioning to Shikamaru, who lazily spoke up. Since this is a tournament, that means there is only one winner, right? Does this mean only one person can become a Chunin? Asked Shikamaru. No, there will be judges including myself, the Kazekage, the lords of various countries and other ninja leaders who will be watching. Throughout the tournament, these judges will evaluate your abilities. Those who are judged to have the necessary qualities of a Chunin will be able to become one even if they lose their first match, said Sarutobi before taking a puff from his pipe. Does that mean that it is possible for everyone here to advance to Chunin? Asked Temari. Yes. However, it is also possible that no one will become a Chunin. To advance in the tournament means you have more opportunities to appeal to the judges, explained Sarutobi. If that is all, then thanks for all the effort you exerted for these trials. You are all dismissed until a month from now, said Sarutobi, allowing for the gathered shinobi to leave the building and prepare themselves. Naruto himself decided to stick around, as he felt the need to sleep coming more and more by the minute. When he walked to the sleeping quarters, he didn't notice that someone was following him and held certain intentions in her actions. Later, Naruto walked around the hallway that led to the sleeping quarters only to be surprised that Anko was standing in the hallway. The purple-haired Tokubetsu Junin looked to the side and smirked as she saw the white-haired boy standing in front of her. She then walked up to him and was smirking up a small storm. Congrats on your win, Gaki. I had to say that was the most gruesome and impressive fight that I've ever seen, she said with Naruto looking down on the ground. It wouldn't have gone that far had Hinata-chan not gotten hurt, Naruto said in a low voice. Anko, however, frowned hearing that before she took Naruto's chin in her hand and made the boy look at her. Look, kid, that would have happened either way if you wanted to or not. You have to remember that their clan has had animosity towards each other for years, and that match proves how bad their blood is, she said with Naruto looking a little eased by that, but Anko knew that he has not gotten over it. She then got an idea, which she knew would have happened eventually, be it sooner or later on in the future. Hey Naruto-kun, follow me for a moment, I'd like to show you something, Anko said as the boy nodded. She then took his hand in hers and walked towards the area she wanted. The two continued until they reached the area that Anko claimed was her room. The boy was confused as he looked around the dimly lit room that held a queen-sized bed with a bathroom and a window overlooking the village and the true beauty of the forest that surrounded the tower they were currently located. His thought process was interrupted when Anko placed her arms around his neck and looked him in the eye. Naruto-kun, do you remember what you promised me a while ago? She asked while slowly removing the boy's jacket from his shoulders until he was wearing only his vest and exposed his tattooed arms to her. She then ran her hands down his arms to feel his covered skin, until she reached under his vest and pulled the zipper down and removed it. She then removed the boy's mesh shirt and exposed his chest to her. She grew a deep smirk on her face. You promised me that when the time was right you would give me what I wanted. I would say that the time is now, she said, wrapping her arms around his neck again, with Naruto himself also doing the same Anko did, and removed her jacket before she placed her arms around his neck. Said boy then placed his hands on the woman's hips and felt the smooth curves on her body that only women her age can attain. Naruto knew that this day would come. Hell, he has felt the desire to tap that ass since the first day he met her. But what his ancestor Virgil said, that humans always chase what they cannot have, such as money, slaves, and power. Only those with the drive to have it can get it, but those that are born with will already have it. However, for Naruto, this was just another girl ready to be his. Anko herself was kinda surprised at herself for willing to seduce and sleep with a 13-year-old boy, while she herself was still in her early 20s. However, Naruto was no longer considered a preteen, or even a boy in the eyes of both the law and in life itself. While yes, he is still a minor, but in terms of law, Naruto was an adult that had the rights to kill another human being in the village's army if need to see fit, as well as fight for the village in the chance of losing your life in a war. If you were able to do all that and not be able to have sex, what was the point then? Besides, she did not really have a problem with having sex with him. After all, sex was one of the things she loved in life. Especially when she could mark any villager stupid enough to try to use their weak game to just have a one-night stand with her, and think that they can brag about it later on. Well, to those villagers it was a night they would never forget, as first she would make sure that after they gave her what she wanted and fell asleep, she would then take their money, and brand them with her signature. She remembered hearing some married men scream at nights when their wives saw the mark, although it was not her fault they chose to cheat with her, just that they were too stupid to fall asleep on her. However, that was not the point. It was now time to get the party started. She then pushed the boy back on the bed, and landed on the soft surface as he sat on the edge, while Anko decided to put on a little show for him. She then shook her hips, moved her hands towards her shirt, and removed it to fully expose her D-cup breast with her pert nipples shining in Naruto's eyes. The woman shook her breast around a bit before showing her back to the boy and shook her ass in his face. The purple-haired woman then moved her hands to the hem of her skirt before ripping them apart, which helped further prove that she wore no panties. She was as bare-assed as the day she was born. She turned her body towards the boy and showed herself off. Naruto gazed over her body as she removed the band holding her hair and let it fall loose so that it would hang over her shoulders. He looked her over and smirked at how well she kept her body. It was like out of everyone in the village, she had one of the best ones next to Yuhi Kurenai. Anko herself had a smirk plastered on her face, as she saw the look on the boy's face. And judging by the way he was looking at her and the whistle he let out, told her that he indeed liked what he was seeing. She then slowly walked towards the boy until she was straddling him. She then removed his headband and claimed his lips on hers, while adding in her tongue to increase the feeling in it. She gasped lightly when Naruto's hands grabbed her ass and gave it a good squeeze before he picked her up a bit and pulled her closer to him, not breaking the kiss. Once Anko felt settled, she let broke the kiss for a moment to catch her breath before she kissed him again, only this time to go to his neck, while he himself did the same. It was soon that his eyes laid on the black mark on her neck, and saw that it was the same mark as Sasuke had. Naruto knew that she was Orochimaru's apprentice, and to see what kind of power that seal gave was amazing, but at the same time, it was slowly taxing on your free will and the person you are. Kyuubi told him that that seal was like a substance he called cocaine. Cocaine, or as its other term called crack, was a mental stabilizing drug that attacks all pleasure centers in the body for only a certain amount of time before it would leave the user stagnant. It would then give you a sense of neediness, as if you had to have the feeling it gave you, and you, yourself, would do whatever it takes just to get it. That was what was happening to Sasuke now. His desire for power would be further enhanced by the seal on his neck and Orochimaru. However, Kyuubi stated that only those that bear demonic influence within them or holds demonic influence such as himself could remove the mark. However, there was one slight problem. The mark can only be removed through sexual intercourse, and he was not willing to lay down with the guy and doing something he would probably commit suicide over. Besides, that boy was way too power hungry to even think about dating a woman, much less getting laid with one. He would probably lose his virginity to Orochimaru anyway in order to break him in. Now as for Anko, the boy knew that she needed to be free from the seal, as that was the only way to truly free her from Orochimaru. Besides, it was also great to see that her seal never activated, so getting rid of it won't be a real pain in the ass. He soon gasped at the sudden chill under his waist as he looked down and saw why. Somehow while he was deep in thought, Anko managed to use her skilled hands in removing his pants and his boxers in one sweep, revealing his nightstick to her. Anko just stared at it for a minute before she eagerly got off to grab him and began to stroke his length, getting a groan from the boy. Anko continued to stroke him before she let out her tongue and began to lick the head, which had pre-cum on it, before running it down the shaft. When she came back up, she opened her mouth, wrapped her lips around him, causing a moan to escape the boy's mouth, and slowly went down until her mouth was around the head and her tongue was running laps around it. Naruto himself moaned loudly before another escaped when she went in further and was now doing something known as deep throat. She then bobbed her head along the boy's length, very surprised by the length the boy held for his age. Naruto groaned loudly as he placed his hand on the woman's head and ran his fingers through it, while she herself went a little faster by the minute. Bobbing her head a little more, she then removed it from her mouth, though it was very slow, and she dragged her tongue up his length, making him moan louder, before she went back down and took one of his balls in her mouth, making Naruto go over the edge. "Oh my god, how are you so good at this?" he asked, with Anko sliding her tongue up his length again. She did little more before she looked the boy in the eye while circling her tongue around the head before she spoke. "All through my years of experience, kid," she said before she got up and kissed the boy again. No longer able to let her have all the fun in this, Naruto surprised her again by picking her up by her ass and brought her back on the bed, their kiss never breaking with their tongues still swirling. Naruto then detached himself from her mouth, and then followed her lead and ran his tongue down her valley before taking a detour from his destination, and took her right breast in his mouth and began to suck on it while his hand began to pinch the left one. Anko moaned loudly, as Naruto was using his hands in the way only certain rare guys skilled in the sexual arts could do, and that was pleasure her without penetration. Naruto was twisting and pinching the woman's left breast, while he himself used his tongue and his teeth on her right one. Naruto then slid his hand down Anko's flat and well-built stomach, and soon reached the land with a giant split in the middle while going over the purple forest. Anko then moaned louder as Naruto inserted two of his fingers inside her already wet pussy, and began to scissor his fingers. Anko grabbed the boy's head and brought closer to her breast, which encouraged the boy to work a little harder on it before he felt that he was ready. He then lifted his body in the air and directed his erect member to Anko's wet pussy with said women, looking ready to be taken. Anko then wrapped her legs around the boy's waist and simply guided him to his prize that would forever make her his. The boy then lowered himself to her silt, and without another moment to waste, he slammed himself into her. There was a brief pause between the two, as Naruto had to fight the urge to come due to his shock that he was now connected with an older lady that would probably never even give him the time of day, much less look his way if he was still the weak Uzumaki blonde boy. He was amazed at the feeling he got from the warmth, tightness, and smooth feeling around his dick gave him, and was now glad he managed to keep his urge down, as he knew he would have came then and there. Anko herself was shocked at the feeling she got from the hardness, warmth, and the size of his dick in her pussy that made her feel complete. If anything, Naruto's dick felt much better, Then the toys and vibrators she used while she continued to enjoy the feeling of Naruto's dick sheathed inside her pussy, making her feel complete. Soon the moment passed and Naruto was now able to do what grand finale of sex was. He then pulled out and slammed back in, making Anko moan aloud, while her body was being jerked around and her breasts swaying due to the force of both the thrusts and her body's movements. As a few moments passed, Anko began to move her body with Naruto's, and their hips began to slap together, which was echoed throughout the room, due to the sweat built in their connected bodies. Anko then screamed out as Naruto fondled her right breast, and took her left one in. Anko quickly wrapped her arms around the boy, not wanting the boy to stop his attacks on her pussy. To Anko, her body felt like they were going on like this for hours when it was actually going past 15 minutes. If you can do this in real life, your girlfriend will never leave you. Naruto soon felt his speed going down, though he still held power in it. Anko moved her hand from his back to his head and held it near her neck while she moaned his name out. Naruto then gave one last mighty thrust, and like that, both Naruto and Anko came at the same time. Anko was soon out of breath, but Naruto was not quite done as his eyes turned red and his fangs grew out. Anko then felt said fangs bite down on her neck, making her scream out before her body collapsed and she was now breathing hard. Naruto then reluctantly pulled himself out of her and collapsed as fell with his own body collapsed beside the woman. She then placed her arm around the boy's chest and smirked at him. Her hair looked a mess, making her look far sexier to the boy. The woman then placed her head on his chest and smiled to herself. "So, tell me, how was it?" Anko asked. "It was as if I had an experience with a woman that looks like an angel but acts like a devil," Naruto said, with Anko smirking up a storm. "Well, if you stay good and prove your worth, you'll see how much of a devil I really can be," Anko said before she began to drift into a blissful sleep. "Then I guess I'm sleeping with the devil next time," he said before he himself fell asleep. If they were awake to notice, they would have seen Anko's curse mark pulse before it vanished, and in its place was a sleeping black fox with purple fog surrounding it. Meanwhile, Rock Lee himself was heaving after he just had a little fun himself with his new mistress, Tsuchi-kin. Apparently using that genjutsu on the girl made her mind grow a strong attraction to him, and since they technically had sex in their match, it made her fall for him, which he did not mind at all, since said girl was drop-dead gorgeous in his demonic-enhanced eyes. Kin herself was happy that she finally lost her virginity, as all the guys in sound were just too arrogant for her to consider sleeping with. Now granted, this was not her first time having sex if having oral, and anal sex counted as times and maybe the few lesbian experiences she had, but she never had a true sexual experience. Until now. In sound, Orochimaru made it so that the boys and girls would be highly aggressive, and when it came to sexual activities, you would only have two options. 1, you could be dominated, or 2, you would dominate. That was it, and when it came to her actual virginity she wasn't willing to allow, not even to the girls that she had sex with over her time as a sound genin. She felt happy that Lee took it for her, as for some odd reason she felt a true attraction to the boy, almost as if she knew that she would pick this boy to take something sacred from her. She then picked up at the highly satisfied Lee and asked, "Wanna go again?" "Again? But we just had 2 rounds of sex, 5 rounds of oral, and about 3 hours of making out, and yet you still want to go again?" Okay, was if she was thinking it through. "Yeah," was her only reply. "Okay," he said before Kin smirked and got on top of him. "If these two do not have any kids by 20, then one of them must have something that prevents them from it." Later on that day, Naruto walked into the hospital with his hands in his coat pockets. He woke up about 2 hours ago with Anko, and both could only look at each other with amazement that they just had sex and it was great for both of them. Naruto got a quick shower and put back on his cloths before he walked towards the hospital to pay a visit to Hinata. Normally he would have gone to go train, but he knew that he would have to see the girl that he loved before he moved on to train. Plus he had a request to ask that only one man can answer. As he entered the lobby he saw his sensei in front of him. "Hey Kakashi, I wanted to ask you something." Naruto said, only for Kakashi to respond as if he knew what Naruto was going to ask. "No Naruto, I cannot train you for the month ahead as I already promised Sasuke, but don't worry, I found a worthy substitute for you," he said before another ninja appeared besides Kakashi, and revealed that he was Ibisu, the teacher of Sarutobi Konohamaru, and one of his first victims in his old harem jutsu that he has not used in so long. It made him wonder whether or not he even knew how to do it again. "Wow. I can't believe you found such a weak nobody to train me. Anyway, I could give 2 shits less about your training. I was going to ask if you knew where Hinata was." he asked, making Kakashi look surprised before he told the boy what room to go to. However, before Naruto could walk away, Ibisu intervened. I'm afraid that you don't understand, Naruto-san. Your sensei has made me your substitute sensei, and as such, I must inform you that I will begin your training now, he said, pushing up his glasses, and noticed that something was wrong. No, Naruto. He looked around and saw Kakashi reading his book before he himself spoke. He left while you were stammering. I'm sorry, but I think you should just go back to doing what you were doing, he said before both men sighed. It appeared that the boy still doesn't trust either one of them. Meanwhile, in the entire Leaf Village, only one person held the most respect and fear that could only come within mere points of beating Aburame Shibi, Hyuga Hiyashi. He was called the White Death due to his combined mastery of his Byakugan and Juken Taijutsu style, as well as his highly keen intellect, plus the very fact that all he had to do was poke you lightly and you would die. If that was not enough, he was also one of the highest political connections and backings out the entire village that was only surpassed by the Hokage himself. However, judging from the look on his face, you could tell he felt ashamed, not at his daughter but at himself. For many years the animosity between the main house and the branch house have thus far been the closet to bringing the clan to a civil war within itself. To make matters even worse than it was, the death of his brother would only further inflate that. If it hadn't been for the Hyuga Council as well as certain branch house members to explain that Hisashi's death was needed, not to spare Hiyashi, but to protect the clan from not only having the secrets of their bloodline exposed, but to also not suffer the same fate of that foolish Uchiha clan. It was through that reason he had both the senseis of his daughter and his nephew within his chambers. He needed to do this now, then he would go see Hinata to check up on her. He needed to spend time with his first daughter anyway. The two Jonin, however, had different feelings, as they felt the need to squirm under the man's gaze and were fighting the urge greatly. Said man inwardly smirked as he saw that he still held his intimidating presence after all these years. It was then that he heard the story of what his daughter went through in her fight with his nephew. He felt angered that his nephew would go so far as to try to kill his daughter for something that was never her fault. He now regretted never telling the boy the truth, as he assumed that he would realize that his brothers died to protect the clan. The caged bird seal was something designed to seal away the bloodline of its bearer in the event of death and protect its clan secrets. If he were to die in place of his brother, then Kumo would study his bloodline, and would then use that to destroy the clan, take their secrets, and create their own Hyuga clan. After Kurenai finished the tale, Hiyashi raised his hand to tell them to stop. Do not worry about this matter, for it will be solved. Now I shall be taking over both my daughter's and my nephew's training for the following month. Since you both have students participating in the finals, you can use that time to prepare them on whatever they need. For the next month it will be time for me to advance their Hyuga art training, he said, with both Junin nodding their heads. Guy then disappeared in a puff of smoke while Kurenai surprisingly stayed behind. Hiyashi then motioned for her to speak, and that she did. The next day, Naruto stood in his training grounds, working on a new jutsu idea he had in his mind for so long, plus the fact that he was working on controlling his now fully awakened devil blood. For some reason, when Orochimaru hit him with that seal, Kyuubi's chakra was flooded through his system and infused with his own, and seemed to have awakened some kind of dormant power within him, but was strongly unable to grasp it again. Kyuubi stated that it was possibly his true power coming out, or it was just that at that moment he accessed so much of his chakra that he broke through Orochimaru's seal. It was unsure at this point. He now stood in his training ground wearing only a white V-neck shirt with black pants and ninja sandals. He panted hard after performing the technique again, but the smile on his face proved how hard he worked on it. Yes, that time I came closer to what I wanted done, Naruto thought before hearing footsteps behind him. He turned around and saw Haku standing in front of him in her average cloths of a blue t-shirt and blue shorts that showed off her body a little to the boy. Haku looked at the surrounding area and whistled at the damage done to the area. You did all this, Naruto-kun? She asked, with Naruto wiping the sweat off of his head and drank some of the water he brought out. Yeah, but the jutsu I'm working on isn't working out like I hoped. I think I may need more time than a month to get it down somewhat, he said, with Haku nodding before she sat near the edge of the lake behind the house they lived in with Naruto right beside her. Hey Naruto, I always wanted to ask you something but I never got the chance to do it, she asked with Naruto nodding. Shoot, he said, drinking more of his water. Why didn't you see me as an enemy back when we first met? I never would have thought that you would pick me as someone worthy to be with you, she said. It was because you and I were alike in so many ways. Up until a year ago, I was nothing more than the common loser, the village idiot, and the loud mouth who talks that talk but never walks the walk. But that was because I was alone. When I met you I felt as though I found someone that could understand similar pain. That feeling of loneliness that few can ever say that they feel. Plus the fact that you're a beautiful girl added to it," he said with Haku blushing a bit at the comment he made. "But why would you choose me to be with you?" she asked. "Because while you may not come from a prestige clan, a high-class background, or even the daughter of a legendary ninja, you will always have something the other girls won't, and that's understanding," he said with her looking confused by that statement. "Understanding? What do you mean by that exactly?" "You understand what it's like to be alone. To wake up the next day and realize that you have nobody to greet you in the morning or to say you love to. Besides, you make things more fun around here," he said with a smile on his face. Haku blushed again before she closed in the gap between them and kissed him. She immediately placed her arms around his neck while Naruto placed his hands on the girl's butt and picked her up to his lap. Haku gasped a bit but didn't let that break her moment in heaven. Naruto then moved his hand up her back and Haku got the message. She then raised her hands and removed her shirt, letting her well-endowed chest free in the air. Naruto smirked to himself, seeing how well her body looked. She must have B-cup size breast, which in all actuality couldn't best Hinata's C-cup size, but who was he to complain about boobs? After all, he was addicted to breast, and even if he went to rehab for it he would always relapse. Absolutely no disrespect to those with drug-addicted family members. I have one as well. Haku decided to follow Naruto's lead and ripped off his shirt, exposing his body to her. Naruto attacked the girl's neck while his hands fondled the girl's breast, making her moan out loud. She then wrapped her legs around the boy's waist, while he picked her up with one arm as the girl kissed him again, while his other held her closer to him. The boy then moved to where one of the trees in his training ground was. He placed her gently on it while Haku got back to her feet. She then pulled down both the boy's pants and boxers down to the point where it pooled around his legs. Haku then grabbed the boy's shaft in her hand while Naruto moved his hands to her panties, and grasped the hem with both hands before ripping it off to reveal her womanhood in full view before the boy placed his hands under her legs and picked her up. Naruto marveled to himself at how smooth her skin was as placed his head on the girl's shoulder, who wrapped her arms around the boy's neck with her legs following suit. Naruto then moved his hands from the bottom of her legs to the back of her ass, and gave it a good squeeze, making the girl giggle while he pushed in slowly, before going in fast and hard in one thrust and broke her barrier. Haku bit her lip in pain but refused to cry out. "Haku-chan, moan for me. Show me the side of you that I love and let me hear you," he whispered in her ear as he was now ready. He began to pull out and push back in, with Haku doing as Naruto said, and was now letting out her moans with Naruto pounding into her with each hit, picking up speed. Haku was in pure bliss right now. Her body was being pleasured by the only boy she would ever say she loved. Her grip on his neck tightened, as she moaned with each hit she took in her pussy. Naruto continued with the hits, his speed never ceasing, his power never diminishing. He continued with pounding until Haku's walls clenched around his dick and made him blow his load while Haku screaming out his name with her orgasm leaking on the grass below. Naruto then finished it off when his eyes glowed red before he bit down on the girl's neck, making her cry out before Naruto removed his fangs from her neck. Both panted heavily, each one trying to catch their breath after heart-pumping sex in the outdoors and in the air. After a few more minutes after it was all said and done, he pulled out of her and sat down with the girl on his lap, with her head now resting on his shoulders with her arms still on his shoulders. "So, Haku-chan, I see you enjoyed yourself," he said with the girl laughing a little before she kissed his cheek. "Oh yes, now please take me in, I'm beat," she said before she fell asleep with Naruto himself laughing before he got up and carried the girl back to his home bridal style. "No probe, babe, no prob," he said as he walked back to his house. Unknown to him, however, Haku's neck glowed before the image of a light blue fox appeared on her neck. The fox appeared to be roaring and summoning large ice spears underneath him, but that would be learned about later on as Naruto took Haku to his room, and with that, he fell asleep as well. The following day, Naruto now stood before the Hokage with Anko, Tenten, and Lee beside him. The boy was called here by the Hokage for something important, which he did not mind since he was getting bored being in the village for so long. However, he did not understand why Tenten and Lee were here, but he supposed it was for something important. "Okay, I'm sure you three are wondering as to the reason why I called you all here. Due to recent circumstances, I decided to send you four on a special mission. The reason why is because I find you three to be the best team I can choose due to your past mission together," he said with all three smiling at that, since that mission changed everything for them in more ways than one. Sarutobi then motioned for the guards to allow the client in. All four shinobi turned their head to see a woman in her early 30s walking into the room. The woman appeared to be some type of regal figure, as she wore a light blue kimono with white clouds on it that hung to her impressive figure and a pair of brown sandals. Her hair was a light brown color and with small bit of hair wrapped in a red strap with a light blue crown in front of it. This woman was not a bad looker for her age, not a bad looker at all. "Everyone, this is your client Takeda Mikira, the wife of the feudal lord in the Lake Country, why not? Mikira-san here is the team you paid for, please brief them on what the circumstances are," he said with Mikira nodding her head and stepping forward. "About a week ago, my little sister Akira went to visit her fiancé in the land of floods, so that our countries can unite and further our wealth and promote peace into our feuding countries. When my sister left, she was heading towards her fiancé's country until he sent me a letter saying that she never showed up. My father and stepfather searched frantically for her, until I received a tip-off that she was kidnapped and was being held captive at a place called the Devil's Island," she said with a heavy voice, which said that she was trying to hold back the tears. However, both Sarutobi's and Anko's eyes widened, but the genin all looked confused. "The Devil's Island? I never heard of that place," Tenten said. "That's because it's a place that's been forbidden to talk about since the incident that occurred there," Sarutobi said with the genin looking confused on the matter before Naruto spoke up. "Do you know the people that did this?" Naruto asked with Mikira nodding. "Yes, I do. They call themselves the Kurogane family," she said with Anko rubbing her chin in wonder. She heard that name before but forgot where she heard it. After giving it a moment to think on, she then turned to the others. "Should we do it?" she asked with Naruto nodding his head. "Why not? We need a challenge," he said with everyone else nodding their heads before Naruto spoke. "We'll do it, however we each want 100K in total for working for you," he said with the women nodding her head. That was a reasonable price after all. "Thank you all," she said with the group nodding once more. "Where was your sister last seen, Mikira-san?" Anko asked politely with the woman sniffling a little before she spoke. "I learned that her escorts were attacked and 2 of them we killed and the other 2 were injured. The letter said that she was last seen about 3 miles from the Katabami gold mines and was taken to the Devil's Island with the man that kidnapped her," she said. "But why the Devil's Island? That place is one of the most dangerous areas in all the elemental countries after what happened there. In fact, why would someone even want to go there?" Anko asked with everyone else just listening to what was being said. "I don't know why. However, I do know that the person who captured her was a tall man wearing a purple outfit while wearing white bandages and was carrying twin swords that resembled pikes. It was said that he could control lightning with them," Mikira said with Anko's face flashing a look of strange curiosity and a little fear on her face. "Very well then. You all have your mission information, so put it to good use. Dismissed," Hiruzen said with the team bowing before they left the room. Later on that day, Naruto was currently relaxing in a hotel within a town that his team decided to rest in for the night. The trip from Konoha to the Devil's Island was about a day-long trip, so they decided to settle down in a nearby town for the night before they headed to that location. Naruto felt tired after getting in a quick 3-hour training session and a spar with Lee, so he decided to crash for the night. He learned from Anko that the Devil's Island got its name through one man that has long since been dead. Kazama Sotachi, the Devil of the Hidden Mist, and one of the most powerful members of the Mist 7 swordsmen besides Momochi Zabuza and Hoshigaki Kisame. That place was once both the training ground and home for the man once he left Mist after being a suspect in the Sandame Mizukage's murder. It was also the proclaimed area that held the battle dubbed Blood Lake, as on that day, this one lone swordsman managed to slay upwards to tens of thousands of shinobi, samurai, and mercenaries alike. When the battle was over, the lake that surrounded the island was a surface of blood. Nobody survived the altercation except one lone ninja that was able to tell the horrible tale in which the man fought as if he was the devil reincarnated. That man would later die a mysterious death one day later until his autopsy ruled it a homicide. To this day, the Devil of the Hidden Mist disappeared from the face of the earth, which made many people suspect that he died while some say that he never even existed. But for Naruto, he was truly fascinated by that story. A man like that was possibly as strong as his father. Perhaps stronger if what the story stated was true. As he was relaxing to the peaceful silence of his room, a knock on his door broke him out of his relaxation and get up from his bed. He put on only a pair of shorts and walked to the door to find Tenten standing in front of it. He opened the door and stepped out, which made Tenten blush at seeing his upper body with no article of clothing, which also did not help that she could actually see all of the boy's tattoos. Tattoos that were beginning to make her sweat. Naruto-kun, I was just wondering if I can come and talk to you. If you don't mind, she said with a bright blush on her face, and was trying all that she could not to look at his body. Said boy smirked inwardly before letting the weapon mistress walk into his room. She then walked over to what's suspected as his bed, since he was sharing a room with Lee, and Lee was currently hanging out at a local party while Anko went to the bar. This was quite possibly her one and only window of opportunity to talk the boy without anyone in the room. In addition, the fact that they were in the same room with a bed, so that did not mean something couldn't get started if they let it. What do you want to talk about, Ten-chan? Naruto asked, sitting beside the girl, who was currently looking at her feet. She needed to make a move now before this opportunity left, and who would know when the next one would come. So with that she made her choice in what course of action to take. She turned her head, and without even knowing what she was doing, she kissed the boy, making his eyes widen before they closed, and kissed her back. Tenten then deepened the kiss before she pushed the boy onto his back, and so that she was on top of him. Time skip after. He then fell beside her with his chest heaving up and down while Tenten placed her head on his chest. I take it this was what you wanted to talk to me about, he said with Tenten trailing her finger over his sweaty chest. Not really, but this is much better than what I wanted to talk about, she said before falling asleep. That's good to know, he said, as Hida fell asleep. Once they did, Tenten's neck glowed in the place Naruto bite her, and formed a gray fox with armor surrounding it and an eye patch over its right eye. Surrounding the fox was a badge with bullet holes all over it, and resembled the symbol on Pandora. They would learn about that soon, but for now, they would just rest up. Tomorrow is going to be big. And guys, this is the end. I hope you guys enjoyed. Until next time, peace.